Our Law and Justice segment tonight. In breaking news, President Trump's travel ban has once again been stopped by the courts. A U.S. district judge issued the ruling early this morning, saying President Trump's remarks on the campaign trail and his past tweets were effectively an unconstitutional Muslim ban. But the precedent that could be set from that kind of ruling that relies on campaign rhetoric instead of the text of the law, that is extremely dangerous. With me now to break it down, retired Navy commander and former Pentagon spokesperson, J.D. Gordon. J.D., good to see you.
Hey, Liz, great to see you.
All right, J.D., so this is the second judge in 2 days who have stopped President Trump's travel ban. It was supposed to go into effect just 1 day later. The judge in Maryland, I want to cover that one first. So that happened this morning. He said that the reason that he was halting this order was because of the rhetoric during Trump's campaign and his past tweets. That's the reason why. It had nothing to do with the actual verbiage or language of the text.
Yeah, this is really outrageous, Liz. This goes beyond judicial overreach to judicial malpractice. You know, we had the same thing during the Bush administration. When I was a Pentagon spokesman, we were constantly fighting federal judges over Gitmo detainees. Well, federal judges put so much pressure on the administration that most of the detainees were released, and about a third of them went back to terrorism and killed a lot of people, thanks to federal judges and their pressure to let them out. So I see the same type of thing unfolding now, where federal judges are taking an activist role and they're damaging national security.
Right, and I don't understand the argument at this point, given what this third iteration of this travel ban is. I don't understand the argument that it's targeting Muslims. I mean, the countries have been expanded. There's 2 other countries that have been added to this list, North Korea and Venezuela. Religion itself is illegal, I believe, in North Korea, so I highly doubt there are any Muslims there. But how can you argue that? How can you argue that a travel ban that targets countries, some yes, majority Muslim, but some that are not? How is that a Muslim ban?
It's not. I think the Supreme Court is going to make this right. But what I think it is, Liz, is this judicial overreach by leftists. I think a lot of leftists in America see this country as a country of slavery, of racism, of Jim Crow laws, as an empire. And leftists want to do anything they can to basically turn American society on its head, I think. And so they come up with all sorts of excuses, even though these excuses don't make any sense, just because that's their worldview. So if you see America as a place that has not done very well in history and it has oppressed people, then sure, you're going to want to turn our society on its head and go against the president, who's just trying to keep this country safe by this immigration policy that he set.
Right, and then there you have it. I mean, the point that you made is exactly right. These judges, these federal judges, they are judicial activists, and they want to ensure that this goes before the Supreme Court. As we know, the Supreme Court was set to hear oral arguments, I think on October 10th, for the second iteration of the travel ban, but because it expired, they told it to go back to, they remanded it, I think is the word, back to the lower court and said, this is a moot case because it's no longer an active case. The temporary portion of it has expired here, but they do want it in front of the Supreme Court. They want the Supreme Court to rule on it. Let me go over to the other judge. This one comes from Hawaii, JD, and he halted the ban for all of the countries excepting Venezuela and North Korea. That makes almost less sense to me than the judge in Maryland who said it was targeting Muslims. How can you have different standards for different countries based off of religion if you are sitting there, your party is sitting there and arguing that there should be equal standards for everyone regardless of your religion?
It makes no sense, Liz. It's completely arbitrary. You know, this judge in Hawaii, ironically, is from the state which has the least threat from terrorism of the 50 states, right? But yet this judge is trying to set policy for the entire country. We've had these radical Islamic terror attacks at the Boston Marathon, Orlando, San Bernardino, Chattanooga. We haven't had attacks in Hawaii. So a judge from Hawaii is now going to set policy for America? And I have roots in Hawaii. My grandmother was born and raised there. Half of my mom's family's from there. I lived in Waikiki for 3 years. But the political mentality in Hawaii is very far to the left, just like this judge. It's sort of like an island tropical paradise of a San Francisco, at least from their political point of view.
Right, sort of a liberal safe space, alternate reality bubble here. This is the other problem that I have with it. I'm not sure how the judge can justify this, but part of the claim from the judge in Hawaii is that President Trump exceeded his executive authority on immigration by issuing this executive order. But how can you exceed authority when it comes to some countries, but not for other countries?
You can't, Liz. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The American people elected President Trump as the president. We didn't elect this judge in Hawaii, which is why it's so important to have the Supreme Court at least represent conservatives, because conservatives aren't going to hammer away at our country like some of these judges are doing. Just like I said during the Bush administration, we were constantly fighting judges. We had 3 Supreme Court cases about Guantanamo. We lost all 3. And so many detainees, Al-Qaeda and Taliban, left and killed people because of federal judges that were liberal activists, the same type of liberal activists we're seeing fight President Trump right now.
Right, perhaps even the same ones here. So one final note on this. This is important for the viewers to know. So part of the difference between this third iteration of the travel ban versus the first one or the second one is that this third one places the onus on the actual countries that are listed on this ban. It says you are not eligible to send your people to our country because you cannot provide the data to back up the fact or to provide the adequate data for a background check on these people, the extreme vetting that President Trump was talking about a long time ago. But if these countries change their data sharing practices and give the United States the information that we need, then these people would be eligible to come. So it's not even a permanent ban on these people because of their country or because of their government. It's simply, if you can provide the data that proves to us that you're safe to come here, you can come here.
That's absolutely right, Liz. The countries that have been on that list are countries that can't guarantee us they're not going to be terrorists coming into America. I mean, it's just common sense. So basically what these judges are doing are trying to subvert the authority of the president and trying to become presidents themselves in effect. If they want, they should run for office.
Right, and I think a lot of judges they'd be better suited to that. Their argument, it sets such a bad precedent too, and it's not consistent. If we looked at the rhetoric from candidates on the campaign trail versus the actual text of the law, then Obamacare couldn't have been constitutional the way it was either, because President Obama promised us that those penalties were not a tax, he said when he was campaigning for it. The Supreme Court later said that they were, and they didn't listen to what he said, his rhetoric on the campaign trail. JD, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.